your day.
Participation arena.
Assuming All Saints is the HQ of
Watchman
SCK,
Society
so
of Kenya.
they need many. Also, it's pre-independent, so they need a lot of watchmen.
Okay.
That's the most nonsensical message anyone can ever say. Let's just call it for what it is.
Yeah, but I choose peace.
Because in that CCTV, we saw actually the guards themselves at the entrance.
You don't actually have to explain because the ridiculousness of it just does not warrant
But
we don't need to deal with that because...
But remember, the president said, Wajinga walisha Kenya, not me.
Oh.
President William Ruto said that.
Not you. Yep. Taking us into a conversation that we'll have today, because we then must ask, okay, so what happens next? DAPK party leader Eugene Wamalwa is here with us this morning. Very good morning to you.
Morning. How are you doing?
Very well.
Thank you.
Karibu sana. You're up with the chickens today.
Yes.
And we're glad that you joined this conversation with us. Thank you very much for doing that.
Asante.
We'll look into a number of things, but before we do that, Dennis has a proverb from a very interesting country.
Yes. This country, its diversity makes it unique. It's a country that continues to tower, especially when it comes to long-distance running. We're in Kenya.
Yes.
Our coffee, our tea, mandhari yetu tamu zaidi. But let's go to the proverb. This proverb comes from the Rift Valley, specifically from the Kalenjin community. A cow does not give birth to things that speak. How would you interpret it?
A cow does not give birth to things that speak.
Yes.
I think that's a very interesting one. The Rift Valley community is a pastoralist community. Yeah. And how would I interpret that now? I think a mother gives birth to many different characters. And some of those speak, some do not speak. And I think this is a very interesting one for the country today. What's happening in the country today?
This is the one where this speaks to how an example of a parent would always be picked. An example set by a parent will be picked by a child.
Yes.
So it goes to perhaps caution in terms of what it is we set for our young ones. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. So it's an interesting time that the country is in at the moment, where they want to recognize it as a moment from 2 years ago or an opportunity. Even today, as we look in a couple of days to the commemoration of the Gen Z demos, opposition have said very clearly that they were going to join the commemoration, memorializing this moment where Kenya maybe was on the precipice of making a change in some things. Is that the position?
Actually, we are not joining, or we are not leading the process. We are standing in solidarity with the families, and particularly the young people who led the revolution on 25th of June. It was a Gen Z-led revolution. And even now, as we commemorate the second anniversary, we were invited. They got in touch with the church, with the opposition, civil society, and we met at the Baptist Church on Ngong Road to commemorate with the families. There was an interdenominational service that was held, and it was organized by the youth themselves. In fact, the preacher at the service was a Gen Z. She was called McKenna, and she made a very, very powerful sermon. And I think she quoted the book of Micah, chapter 6, verse 8, where it said that act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. And she challenged the youth of this country never to give up on justice and not to give in to injustice. And we must all fight for justice and act justly. And in the sermon, they were basically saying, though the government has compensated or given a token of compensation to the families, it's not enough. We must still fight for justice. So listening to this preacher, a young person, listening to the families of the victims, it was very moving. It was Father's Day, remember?
Yes.
And we joined Rex Masai's father. He was one of those who spoke at the service, and he spoke very passionately for the other families. Say, okay, 2 years down the line, You're throwing 3 million to each family. Yet those who killed our children have not been arrested, they have not been investigated, they have not been prosecuted. So it's not enough for you to give us this money.
Yeah.
We want justice. We want accountability. We want all those who perpetrated these atrocities to be held to account.
Eugene, one then ask the question, even as there is push for justice to be there, many have said, including the civil rights groups, that giving out money does not offer justice.
Yes.
But that notwithstanding, we look at the statements that have come as well from different quarters as we approach the anniversary, and said, Nyinyi endeni tuta, what Molo MP said. And these are statements that many ask, did we not learn? Have we not learned?
The arrogance of this regime is totally sickening. Because when you listen to the victims, you listen to the families, they have not healed. They are still hurting. I don't know if you remember this poem about a parent crying and talking to God, that God, if you've taken away my child, give me the strength to dig his grave, for grass will grow. We must thank the media, because you have been able to follow up with these families. Last night I was watching one of the families in Nyanza, and they were showing grass growing on the grave of this young man. I think it was just 23 years. Was killed walking to work. And the parents were saying, this 3 million cannot return our child. But the officer who shot this child with live bullets, I think they hit this young man with 5 bullets. They killed him. He's not been investigated, he's not been arrested, he's not been held to account for the misuse of the firearm and for the killing of this young person. So you give me 3 million, what can I build a house? What can I do with 3 million? So really, you listen to the president speak. He was warning these young people about the 25th. The deputy president, Kindiki, giving a warning to the young people. The CS, Interior, Murkomen, warning these young people. The PS, Raymond Omolo, warning the young people. Yesterday I was listening to the government spokesperson, Mwaura. So what you're seeing is a very arrogant government saying, no, we've sorted you out. We don't want you on the streets. And if you are coming at your own peril, we cannot guarantee you. If the goons come in, and listening to CS, I think it was last night, they were saying we do not have enough police officers to guarantee that goons will be kept home. So what are they saying? They're basically intimidating these young people not to come out. And they're saying, okay, if we allow you, you must be at your best behavior, you must do it this way or that way. Now, this is really the height of arrogance. What these families want is to honor their fallen heroes in their own way. If they choose to stay home and they say, we are not going to school, we are not working today, we'll stay home and remember Albert Ojwang, remember Rex Masai, remember Denzel Omondi, remember Willie Sitati, and all those who were killed. It is their right to do it. If they choose to come out on the streets and march to Parliament to lay wreaths at the scene of crime where their comrades were killed, they have a right to do it. Under Article 37, it is not dependent on the generosity of the state. That freedom of expression, of protesting, is guaranteed by this constitution. It's not dependent on the generosity of the state. So listening to the talk and everything, you can see that intimidation coming through. But we as the opposition want to say this is still a youth-led event. They are going to remember their comrades. Let them do so in peace and let them do so in honor and with dignity. Last year, we were invited by some of them. I was with my brother Kalonzo Musyoka. We met them at the Holy Family Basilica. They had wreaths of flowers. So we marched from Holy Family Basilica to Parliament. But the amount of force that was used, Parliament was completely barricaded. If you looked at the barbed wire, you would have thought it was a maximum prison somewhere. Then the force they used in tear gassing, in shooting, in injuring these young people was uncalled for. It was a commemoration.
Yeah.
What happened? 62 fell on the 25th of June.
Yes.
live bullets. You saw police going on one knee, aiming and shooting unarmed young Kenyans. On the day of commemoration, yesterday I had IPOA confirming the figures. 27 were killed again, going to remember and honor their heroes. Within a month, actually it was less than a month, because from 25th to the 7th of July, it's just like 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Another 38 were killed by police bullets. So meaning within the month of commemoration, almost another 60 people were killed by the same police. Yet, we are not ready to hold to account these people. Out of all this, you look at the report given, only 3 cases. What does that mean? It means this government is not ready to ensure accountability and to hold accountable all rogue officers who are misusing firearms, using live bullets, and actually murdering their fellow citizens.
Does it equate to then that even though they were able or willing, or rather able or ready, that there is an unwillingness to actually follow the elements of the Constitution? And I ask this because if we look at the factors that set folks to protest in 2024, have any of those actually been met? Because the response from the president on the night of the 25th was one of anger. And he was very clear in his statement on that night after what happened had happened. He then came back the next morning and kind of retracted what he had said, and almost without just saying it, looked as though he was a bit remorseful for the words that he said. And this is when he, and I say this in air quotes, then evacuated cabinet and said that, we're bringing different people in, kind of like just shifted them around. But have the issues that sent folks to the streets in June 2024 been addressed? Because those are that's the fundamental thing.
Not at all. Not at all. And looking at what happened that day, these young people had demanded that finance bill 2024 be shelved. They were actually at the gates of Parliament when members of Parliament, went ahead and arrogantly, went through the third reading. They rushed through. And these young fellows were at the gate. They could hear them. The members of Parliament could hear them saying, no, reject. But they still passed it because they had the numbers. So I think after 3, that is when they expressed their righteous anger. And actually, when they were told, these guys have already passed, so they marched in. The reaction of the president that day really aggravated the situation because he acted in anger. And he called these young people dangerous criminals. Out there, whether it's in the US or in Europe, once you are branded and armed and dangerous, that's a shoot to kill order. Once you are branded armed and dangerous criminal, then that really is what happened. And these young people were shot. You remember what the CS Interior also said. This is what led to actually the shooting and the killing of these young people. And later on, there was a second order given. Now, stop shooting them, start shooting them in the leg. That is something that cannot be retracted by another statement, because once the damage is done, it's done. It is something that even as we speak and listen to the families, the president has not apologized, made a formal apology. And one of the demands that the families had during the memorial service was that they want an official apology from President Ruto and his government. That is yet to be done. But I must also say on behalf of the opposition that equally we, the opposition, let down the people of Kenya. And we owe them an apology. And I think on behalf of the Azimio leadership, I must tender our apology.
What did you
from
do to
the
let
opposition.
the people down? What did you do to let the people down?
When we had the first demonstrations, you remember the Azimio demonstrations, we were out on the streets. And almost 73 young people were killed.
This was the Sufuria movement?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you remember that's when now the real bottom-up taxes kicked in. Everything went from the bottom upwards. It is that Finance Bill 2023 that doubled VAT on fuel. Remember, from 8% to 16%. Really, the minute fuel goes up, the cost of living goes across board. And when we went to Bomas, I was one of the 10 members of that Bomas team, the NADCO team. And amongst the 5 issues that were on the table was the issue of cost of living. The issue of, electoral justice. Then there are those other issues of, amending the constitution to get the position of leader of opposition and 2 deputies, the prime cabinet secretary, anchored in the constitution. Then the issue of the 2/3 gender rule, so that we have more women in parliament.
Yeah.
Now, what we did at Bomas was that the government side pushed for those positions, but they stonewalled completely on the real Wanjiku issues that touch on the cost of living. And at that time, I think as Azimio, we started softening. We did not know that some of our colleagues in the ODM had now started engaging the government with a view of maybe getting a share of government and literally going into bed with the oppressor.
Yeah.
And this started happening at Bomas. And why we must, and I do apologize because I was there and I was the only one who did not sign that report, because we did not do justice to the single most important issue. That was the issue of cost of living. And we let off William Ruto very easily at Bomas. I remember, and the Hansel will bear me out, I did tell my colleagues, this thing will come back to haunt us. And it did, in the form of the Gen Z protests. Had we, the leaders, done the right thing at Bomas? What William Ruto did the other day, it was a roadside declaration. I direct that VAT be reduced from 16% to 8%. Had he done that at Bomas, had we as Azimio put down our foot and demanded that happens, or we march out, William Ruto would have done it in 2023. And that would have led to a different finance bill in 2024. But we let him off the hook easily. What happened? The Finance Bill 2024 was worse than the Finance Bill 2023. Then the young people realized our leaders, because by then, you remember the events from November towards the end of the year. Then you come into March and ODM goes into a post-election pact with UDA. So but it was a build-up when people realized these people have abandoned us. They've gone into bed with the oppressor. We're on our own. No one is going to fight for us. So the young people came out to fight for themselves because we let them down. So even as we demand an apology from government, we, the opposition, owe the young people and the Kenyans an apology. And I would, on behalf of the Democratic Action Party of Kenya and the opposition, unreservedly give that apology, but demand also that the president, William Ruto, and his UDA team and the broad-based team equally tender a formal apology to the young people. The other issue is the issue of justice. These people are demanding justice. It's not enough to throw 3 million shillings at these families and say you've sorted it out. Justice includes, you have the restorative justice, you have the retributive justice, because these families are still hurting. These rogue police officers who got off the hook so easily will kill again. Unless we have put in place measures to ensure that they don't. Unless we have told them you shall be held to account personally. You in the command structure who oversaw this shall be held to account. And we must remind them about General Ali, the IG of police who ended up at The Hague. He was taken to The Hague, and IG Kanja, we've told him, if he or presides over these rogue police, they will continue killing Kenyans and committing crimes against humanity. Samia Suluhu is today facing challenges that might actually lead her to The Hague. And this can also happen in Kenya. William Ruto came from The Hague. If they continue doing what they're doing, he could as well end up there. But what we are saying is that this issue of saying we have allocated 2 billion in our budget towards compensation. those who killed are not being held to account. So that means you're basically telling Kenyans, we can kill and we can pay. And if this happens again, in the next budget, you know what they're going to do? We must set aside maybe another 3 billion to cover this. Because it is going to happen again.
What I'm hearing you say is that justice must be given, must be seen to be taken place and be done.
Yes.
But then again, if you look at the opposition as previously was constituted Azimio, the court itself ruled that Azimio was the majority in the House.
Yes.
But we're looking at members of parliament who, before the fact, allowed themselves to cross and work with government, you know, goes to speak in terms of the electorate, who those who've been elected, given an opportunity to represent, not knowing exactly what they ought to be doing in the House, because one would say, he who pays the piper calls the tune, you know. But that notwithstanding as well, if you look at the post-election agreement between ODM, broad-based arrangement, that was after the Gen Z protest, and many asked the question, even after that, have we achieved anything? Because in 2025, again, Kenyans were killed on the streets during the anniversary of the same. So with these then, would Kenyans be right to say there exists a leadership that does not care about Mwananchi?
That is correct, and on this, we have let Kenyans down, and we have fallen short of the glory of God. And I think time has come when we must start putting accountability and justice above everything else. Because monies can be allocated in the next budget, families can be paid, but as long as those rogue officers are still there, they're still misusing those firearms, they'll still kill. And like you asked, nothing has changed. The conditions that led to the young people are still there. Because we still have the same bottom-up government in place. Everything is going from the bottom up. Everything, from fuel. Now, if you look at electricity, even water, rent, school, everything is going bottom up. So we are saying that something needs to be done to hold to account these officers. And we, as the incoming, or the alternative government, we're saying one thing we're going to ensure is that the cover-up that has been there is just a matter of a few months to go. If we take over government, Eugene Wamalwa is president tomorrow. I think the number one thing would be to ensure justice for these families. And the beauty of our law is that unlike in civil suits, you know, the limitation, the statute of limitation does not apply to crimes. So as long as there is evidence, and we saw these officers. If you look at the photograph at about between 3 and 4 p.m., those officers went on their knees and aimed. The videos are there, the photographs are there, but they are being protected by the state.
But Eugene, one would equally ask the question, you form government and there is justice that has to be given.
Yes.
Everybody must be seen, justice to be applied to them.
Yes.
We have some of your members as well who've been accused of committing the same crimes. Fred Matiang'i, there are calls for him to give answers on what happened to Rivayala.
And I think
at the time when you were under the Sufuria movement, we saw it was the then Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, who woke up at 5 a.m., went to office and said, the president is not here, I'm the one who's in charge. So when you talk about justice being offered, it must be seen to be delivered across board. There are no sacred cows.
And it will be. And there's no collective responsibility in crime. A crime is committed by an individual, and that individual must be identified. And where there's evidence, it matters not how long it's going to take. This regime will go out of, and this is what I want to advise those in uniform, that you might be protected today by William Ruto, but the incoming government will not protect you. You shall be taken to court. You shall be held to account individually. That responsibility is not a shared responsibility. And this is going to happen. Some of the reforms we want to put in place, because the families are also saying there must be remedial measures put in place in terms of policies and the reforms to ensure this does not happen. Some of the things we want to say as we take over government, there are very practical changes that we can make to hold that officer personally responsible. If we have body cams for all the officers, so that whatever you are doing once you're in uniform, you are able to monitor your movements. And whatever you do, whether it is taking a bribe, you can be traced. That will kill the issue of corruption in the police force. And it's mandatory because you cannot take it off.
Yeah.
It will be an offense. So these are some of the reforms we can put in place. And also the movement of firearms. Using technology, you know that those technologies that can be put on arms, so that there's traceability of arms from the armory to the officer. It's called the RDI, and that arm is traced to the place where it was deployed until that time when it is returned back to the armory. In terms of the ammunition used, so all we need to do is enhance some of these checks and use technology to hold that officer responsible in terms of his movement and the movement of the arms, and the misuse of arms would be something. Because what are these people telling us? That we could only find enough evidence for 3 cases. If we have 62 killed and you're only prosecuting 3, what does that mean? The rest are off the hook. So it means these officers would just say, okay, the chance of me being prosecuted, even if I do this, is like 1.5%. So, but if we increase that weight of responsibility on an individual officer, you'll see changes in our police, in the manner they handle those firearms, in the manner they handle the citizens, because this we had a police force. Under the new constitution, we're supposed to have a police service that must act in the highest form of professionalism and with respect to human rights. That is in the law, the National Police Service Act. It is in our constitution. But these officers do not care about human rights. And the government itself, because it's protecting the same officers, do not care about human rights and the rule of law. So our pledge to Kenyans is that we must return this country back to the path of the rule of law and constitutionalism. And to do that, we must have a president and administration that actually believes in constitutionalism and the rule of law. That is totally lacking. And this is one thing that we want to assure Kenyans, that given that opportunity, with Wamalwa as president, that will be my number one priority, to ensure justice to the victims.
Are you saying that there is lack of political goodwill to deal with the problem that we see today, ending police brutality in the country?
Totally, and there is what we call protection. This is what creates the impunity. And we have special squads of police officers who have been responsible for these executions. You remember when President Ruto took over, he said he was disbanding the SSU.
Yes.
You're saying this was the unit that the whole administration was using to kill people. But as we speak, he has created his own special squads, including some of those who are particularly from a particular community who went to parliament to defend their own. They acted outside the rules of engagement, and they were embedded in fact, IG Kanja, when we cornered him on this, because we visited, he actually admits there are some officers who came from outside for a special mission. And this squad is the one that has gone on with the abductions. They followed these young people who were in parliament. They had their photographs. And Safaricom was complicit in this because they were using the Safaricom technology to actually trace these young people. And they were picked one by one. Many of them are no longer with us. Many of them just disappeared. So the issue of abductions, the issue of enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killings, is one of the biggest challenges we must deal with. And as the alternative government, this is from day one, we want to assure families that the 3 million is not enough. We must deliver justice to those families, and we want to bring reforms, police reforms, judicial reforms, to ensure justice and accountability in future.
Okay.
But for those who have committed the crimes, they will be held to account, and the law will take its course. So these are some of the things as we engaged with the families that they raised. But one of the other issues that they asked for is that they would want this day that is coming, 25th of June, to be marked as a national holiday. We know that this government, the way they are talking to the families, they don't care. They don't even want them to hold the commemoration. So they will not honor them by that. But we have assured them, and we say this to the families, that as the incoming government, we will, from day one, set aside this day as a day of commemoration, a day of honoring, because it is a historic day. It's a day when actually the people, under Article 1, when they took back power, that parliament was impeached on the 25th. In fact, in a mature democracy, Speaker Wetangula, who left that parliament, I'm told in an ambulance, literally should not have gone back in that seat because parliament stood impeached that day and the people had taken back their power. These are some of the things that
are coming to play.
Yes, as we come, we must assure them that 25th of June will be marked as a public holiday and a day of commemoration where families will be allowed. Years to come, people are still commemorating what happened in Hiroshima, what happened 9/11 many years ago. Why are we not allowing these families to honor their fallen heroes? We want to assure you that this day will be set aside for that. They will do it peacefully. They will do it in dignity. And the government will be there to protect, not to assault them.
On that day, it would appear as though there was a coalescence around an idea that certain things could no longer happen in government. And the finance bill was a means to then talk about certain things. The finance bill presented an opportunity for folks to then come in and talk about corruption and improper governance, extrajudicial killings and all of these. And it would appear as though those who came out in opposition to these things were united. Well, before long, some of the front leaders then had been co-opted into government and then were on the other side and pushing the agenda of the administration. Whereas many could say that that's their right, they could do whatever they needed to do. Does it sully the image of this protest when you can bring people onto the other side? And when you look at then what happened, where there were some potent voices that then crossed over, and some didn't do, some did so unabashedly. Is engaging the government an act of betrayal? Is having the conversation? Is going over to the other side an act of betrayal to this cause?
It is an act of betrayal. You remember these young people when they realized that this NADCO thing was not happening and the finance bill 2024 was worse, and that we, the political class, had gone to actually serve our political interests at the table instead of fighting for them. This is when they chose to fight for themselves, because what was served at Bombers was what was politically expedient, and we abandoned the people. You do remember in Azimio were several parties, but when our colleagues in Azimio chose to cross over to the government side, we had a split. Actually, that was the beginning of the end of Azimio. We had a split in Azimio because there is that shared vision, the shared values that brought us together as Azimio, and why we opposed William Ruto and why we thought he was not fit to be president, and we chose Baba. There was a reason that brought us together. So when we are given the opportunity to come to the table to present the issues, and we compromise on the issues, then it is a betrayal. It is an act of betrayal. The Gen Zs had asked that this one, Baba, you fought for us long enough, just sit out on this, to achieve. That is all they asked. But when we came to the table, hatukuachia, we instead crossed over to the side of the oppressor and signed an agreement to share power. We left them out on the streets. Nothing has changed since. The finance bills taxes have gone higher and higher, bottom up from 2023, 2024, 2025, even this 2026. In fact, I think it will be signed maybe today. So we once that signed bill is signed into law and you scrutinize it properly, they're trying to say, and they had told us, that there will be no new taxes. You remember this George Bush saying that that brought him down. Read my lips. No new taxes. This is what this government said.
Yeah.
But there are so many embedded taxes, hidden in that will come to heart. We don't want to go into that today because they're signing the bill. We will know which bill he has actually signed, and we'll analyze it. But this hasn't changed. So we want to say that as a result of that difference at Bomas, those of us who refused to sign up, and those of us who found it untenable to continue being in Azimio when part of Azimio was in government. So here's a situation where I had a complete mongrel. We did not know whether the government was in the opposition or the opposition was in government. And the lines are blurred today. Even in parliament, when you listen to the leader speak, Junaid Mohammed is supposed to be the leader of the minority. Kimani Ichung'wah is supposed to be the leader of the majority. Yet, when they speak now, they speak the same language. So who speaks for the people? You have a finance bill coming. The highest responsibility for any member of parliament is to represent the people, not to represent the person at State House.
Eugene, what's the guarantee?
No,
what's the guarantee that anybody, it doesn't matter who comes in tomorrow? Because like from what we've seen very clearly now, that I could say something to you today,
yes,
and I look you in the eye, and in the moment you think, you're convinced beyond a shadow of doubt that I am authentic. We've seen this.
The guarantee.
But in a very short period of time, that has all turned on its head. We have people speaking a language today that they were not speaking a year ago. We have people who have turned on the axis like day and night. So what is the guarantee?
The guarantee.
What Eugene Wamalwa is saying today is actually the same thing that he will be saying should you be in a position whereby you can actually move policy.
The guarantee is this, that we must put integrity on the ballot. The next ballot in a few months to come, we must put integrity on the ballot. We must, if Eugene Wamalwa comes before you, I want to be your president, you must look at my public record, my record in public service. If you find any iota of a scandal in any of the ministries I led, whether in justice, whether in water, whether in devolution or in defense, do not allow me anywhere near that State House. Because if I was stealing with one hand in that ministry, I'll steal with both hands at State House. There's no one above me. And I can call any State Department. The level of corruption that's going on in this country is because we have people whose history is known from the YK 92 days, the deals they were doing. Now, in State House today, you're looking at a deal after deal. You know, as the opposition, I can tell you, these fellows are overworking us. We have, you are dealing with a Danny deal to stop JKIA. You hear Ketraco is going, 95 billion. Kidogo Shandio here, 104 billion. So we have fought. We've been to court. We've gotten orders to stop. We stopped Adani. DAP were in court. YPA were in court. Our friend Tony Gashoka. When we're doing this, they have come back. You know Chevayo, the Zimbabwean? You see him in Sagana. Kidogo, you see him here instead. Siju, you see him where? Then boom, there's another deal on JKIA. So here we are busy again now, having to run back to JKIA. When we're already in court, Safaricom is going. Our shares are undervalued. So here we are, and I can tell you this, that if we put integrity on the ballot, this is what will guarantee. But I can tell you, there are people. We're not saying we are a nation of angels. As Madison said, if we are a nation of angels, then we don't need government because we'll all be good people.
Right.
But there are those who have a record and they have been consistent. And I can tell you, when we fell apart as Azimio, there are those of us who said, no, joining Ruto now would be betraying the Kenyans. And I can tell you, Martha Karua was the first one. You remember when she moved from Azimio with the PLP, DAP Kenya. I was the second one to leave Azimio. And as we speak today, even in ODM, you can see there are two factions now. There are those who have been with us in the struggle. Kina Orengo, Kina Sifuna, Kina Otsosi. You can see, even within ODM, there are those who are not comfortable going into bed with the UDA. And Sifuna yesterday, I think he has been kicked out. We are telling the Linda Mwananchi team, we in the united opposition who believe this government should be a one-term government, They believe it should be a one-term government. We are saying it's not enough for you in Linda Mwanini to say one term. We in the United Opposition say one term. Now, this one term must become one team for us to take Ruto home. And we are willing and ready to join hands. And for this to happen, Kenyans themselves must look at our records and ensure that we put integrity on the ballot.
I mean, when you talk about betrayal, there is betrayal that happened in the political, from the political class. There is also some who are very vocal within the Gen Z movement who equally joined the government. That is another betrayal. One asked the question.
That is correct.
Did the cause change? And can activism and governance be separated?
Not really. We are all the same, and we're not just talking about some of the young people who, and you know them. I don't want to name them.
Yeah.
There are particularly two very young who are very vocal, who crossed over to the other side. When they defend William Ruto's government, you get shocked. Is this the same guy we were with? Some of them even came and sat with us in the opposition. And this is also happening in churches. There are those churches that were very vocal that have now gone silent. But there are also churches like the Catholic Church, the Anglican, that have stayed consistent on the side of the people in saying this burden of taxation must be dealt with. The issues of extrajudicial killing and violation of human rights must. The church, the voice of the church has remained the voice of the voiceless in the country. But there's that team in the opposition that has also stood on the side of the people, and I'm very proud to be part of that team. I'm encouraging even those who are in government, in the ODM, in the broad-based side, and who believe in what we believe in the one term. Time has come for them to come, we join hands. The 202 path that we took is what brought an end to the Kano regime. You do recall Wamalwa, Kibaki, Ngilu had the NAK side. They held the opposition steady, as we are doing with Kalonzo, with Karua and the others. But there are those who are in government. Raila, we had Kalonzo that side, we had Mudi Awori and Saitoti. They moved from the government side to the opposition. They were the Rainbow team. They joined the NAC team. Then we formed the National Rainbow Coalition. That is the coalition that is coming. And we want to tell Kenyans, help is on the way. But the Gen Zs, we want to tell them that, yes, you have shown your courage, but you cannot go it alone. This issue of saying we cannot work with those oldies, the seasoned politicians, you want to remain leaderless. As long as you remain leaderless, then you'll have a leader in State House who is not a leader of your choice. But if we come together with the Gen Z and we take that Gen Zote approach, it doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter your gender, but as long as we believe we have a shared vision and a shared values, then we can come together. And we can make this change happen together.
The last question would be, Eugene, doesn't it confuse people when everybody says they want to be president? So on one hand, you're saying that we must come together and work together.
Yes.
But on the other hand, Eugene wants to be president, Martha Karua wants to be president, Matiang'i wants to be president. You're confusing us. It's like that one card, the king or the queen or the ace is moving all over the place and we can't really tell which one it is. Is it a strategy to keep us confused until the last moment?
I think.
Or does everybody authentically want to be president and then we can surprise you and say that, well, that's not going to happen?
We all qualify. And I can tell you, so far we have in our coalition 6 parties that have presidential candidates. The Democratic Action Party, my party, has cleared me. Karua's PLP has cleared her. Kalonzo's Wiper has cleared him. We have DP of Muturi that has cleared him. Matiang'i has been cleared by Jubilee and Gachagua DCP. But we all know the 6 of us can't all be the 6th president. We will agree on one. We also know that in the Linda Mwananchi, they might also join us and they might also have the presidential candidate to join the team. So we might have 10 presidential candidates. But we have a painful history to learn from. 92, when everyone said they were popular enough to remove Moi, Jaramogi could not agree with Matiba and Kibaki. They lost to Moi. 97, my brother Mike could not agree with Raila, with Ngilu. Ngilu said Masani ya mama. Then we had Kibaki. They lost again. But in 2002, when they came together, in that musketeer spirit of all for one and one for all, they won. Now, that is the path we must all follow. And we must also say that Kenya is bigger than all of us. And we must subordinate our personal ambition to that greater national interest. So, learning from our painful history of division as the opposition, we know that we cannot.
You can't tell us who it really is.
No, for
but
now,
everybody wants
it
to
is strategic for us not to do it prematurely, because
Okay.
also if we do, it will be counterproductive. But whoever we agree on, if it's not Eugene Wamalwa, I'll support. If it is Eugene Wamalwa, I believe my colleagues will support me. But we'll have one candidate against William Ruto. We'll remain united to bring this change together.
Eugene Wamalwa is party leader of DAP Kenya, and he's been here with us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you for those insights. Looking forward to peaceful times in the near future. Asante sana for joining us and
Thank
for
you.
waking up early to do so. Until the next time we talk, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and do have a good day.
Asante sana.
And a happy 25th June anniversary.
Indeed.
Asante.
It's 7:15. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.